Hey everyone, Chris Roma, aka Roma Aquatics. Today I'm going to do a rack build for 8 20-gallon tanks or 6 20-gallon tanks and some 10s, but the dimensions are going to be the same either way. So here we go. Here we have some 2x4s. I bought 16 2x4s. I believe they're about 8 feet long. So what I did is I took 6 of them, which are going to be the legs for the stand. I will show you a picture of what the stand looks like in a minute when I'm going to draw it out. But basically there's going to be 4 legs on each of the corners like a table, and then 2 legs in the middle, so 6 legs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these to the length I want, as high as the studs of my ceiling, so I can secure them to the studs of my ceiling in the fish room. And then I'm going to cut out little notches the size of a board. So say you have where I want the shelf to come across, this will make more sense as I'm doing it, but where I want the shelf to come across, I'm going to cut out a notch where the board can go into there and then be supported by that, and that way the weight is supported by the wood in the legs and not just the screws. Thank you, Chris Hardy, for this design. Well, the idea for this design, he sent me a message after I did my live stream on the new fish room and showed the racks that I bought from Home Depot, and he said he wouldn't trust them, and for the same price you could build a rack like this. And he sent me 2 pictures and kind of showed exactly what to do. So this is how we do it. Thank you, Chris. Okay, so I drew it out so you guys can see what I'm thinking a little bit better. So the 6 studs I have right here are going to be these. These are the notches I was talking about that I'm going to cut out here so that the shelf boards can slip into those notches. And basically these boards are going to overhang the legs on each side by about 2 inches, the same width as another piece of wood. And these 3 pieces of wood are going to go on the outside of the shelf to connect one side and the mirror image of this side, and they'll go from here to the other side, and then I'll put a screw down through the shelf through this piece of wood. So then that'll be secured. This wood will also be secured with screws this way, and then there'll also be screws going into these pieces of wood that go through this and into this. If that doesn't make sense, I'm sorry, we'll see as we go. But a little bit more on cutting these notches. So I did a little bit of trial and error with the measuring, so pay no attention to these lines that are scribbled out. But these lines here and here are the lines, and down there are for the shelves. And what I'm going to do to cut out these notches is I'm going to take a saw, a handheld, just a normal saw, and I'm going to cut all these notches. So I'm going to set the saw to just a hair longer than the width of a piece of wood, so just a hair deeper than this. Go cross, 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 and put a bunch of lines up and all through here, like 10 of them. And then what you do is you go and you take a screwdriver or a chisel or something, and you snap out the little pieces that you carved. So they'll be like little chips. You snap them out, snap them out, snap them out. So basically you start with a cut, you snap out a chip, and then what you're left is with this notch. The bottom will be a little bit rough because you're just snapping it out, but that's why you make the saw a hair deeper, and basically the shelf is going to slide in here and cover all that up anyway. But you do want to go in there and try to make it as smooth as you can so you get a nice good connection when you put the screws through. But you just take out the big hunks, you don't have to worry about the little bit, but we'll cover that when we get there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set the depth of the saw, so those little pieces that we're going to snap off. So on your saw you should have a little thing to be able to move your ridge, or whatever that thing is called, guard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on here, I'm going to lower it to where it's just a hair deeper in the depth of that wood. So make sure your guard is straight on there. Look at your blade. You can see right there it's about the depth. You go a hair deeper.
And then I'm gonna lock my guard. Now if I flip my saw, should be the depth deeper than the blade. And as you can see, the blade is just sticking up a little bit there, which is exactly what I want. So that's how you set your saw to the depth of wood.
Just a little tip before you make any cuts, always measure twice, cut once. But just in case, even though I measured twice, I am still going to, instead of starting at this bottom cut here, from this line up is just a waste. So I don't need this wood, that's just getting cut off. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna make this bottom cut first and try to notch it and make sure everything comes out the way I want it to. And that way if anything goes wrong, I still can just cut this off and I will still have enough wood to reuse this wood and start from scratch if I wanted to. Whereas if I did one of these notches in the middle first, or started on this end, or cut the wood first, I'd be screwing myself if anything happened to go wrong.
Moment of truth. So I'm gonna line this guard, or whatever you want to call it, up on the line. It's lined up nice, especially for this first cut, because this one's important. Going a little sideways, and we'll just come in again here. Or I could keep going and then just sand it off a bit. Cut number 1 done, and actually got it back over on the line, so we're all good. Now I'm just going to come in and make all the notch cuts. This is going to be a lot of cuts, I have a feeling, so I'm just going to keep on going and I'll show you the end result. So this is what we got going on. I already went ahead and snapped out 2 of them just as a test run. They came out pretty easy, but all I did is take this screwdriver, stick it in there, comes right out. So I got a little fatter with these last ones to see if I could save myself some cuts, and apparently I can. But you see how you have this little pieces of wood sticking up down here? That's why you want to go a little deeper. Oh, look at that, I just did like 5 at once, almost the whole row. Just gonna go across here. But I think you guys get the idea. I'm going to go ahead and pause here until I finish. You can see I just got a big chunk there. I'm going to have to take care of that one later. So I ended up with some bigger chunks, like here, a couple here. So what I'm going to do with them is just take the saw blade over them and cut them down so I can then notch them out. ahead and notch those bigger pieces. And then they'll just come right out, just like the other guys did. Or at least we hope they will, right? Plan. Alright, but I think you guys get the hint. And then anything that's even left, you could either just take a hammer and chisel it out, and that stuff will just pop, the big pieces will pop right out. But the next scene you should see, which should be me putting the piece of wood into this slot to see if it fits. Just kidding, next scene isn't putting the wood in. I thought I'd show you what I was doing. So I got most of the big pieces out, just by basically any ridge I saw, just taking a hammer to it. Well, chisel, just basically chiseling it out. And it seems to be working fairly well, and I've got it pretty much as smooth as I need it to be. Oh, maybe one more little piece right there should come out. But again, you don't really have to be that picky because this is getting hidden. So as long as the wood fits in, which it does like a glove, that's exactly what we're going for there. So beautiful, couldn't be happier. I'm going to continue to do that for the rest of the show. Alright guys, I was running a little bit low on battery, so I just went down to cutting the ends and getting experimental. And this is what I found out. I could have saved myself a lot of work, even though it's a little risky, but it's worked so far. But basically I just made the end cuts. I take a hammer and I hit as close to the end as I can. 1, 2. It's hard to do while holding the camera. And of course, at first place I hit cracked, but that's okay. I should not have been doing this while holding the camera. Basically, it just rips off nicely. Well, not quite so nicely, but nice enough. That little bit's not going to matter. The wood's still going to fit in there nice. You find a piece of wood. Piece of wood fits in. Nice, nice. It's almost level. Perfect. Let's do it one more time. Hopefully this one goes a little cleaner. Yeah, that's how they've been working out pretty much the whole time. Nice and clean and all. So that works well. It actually works as one piece better than two pieces, I've noticed. And the quicker and harder you hit it, the cleaner and better it works. The only times I've run into problems is where there's knots and the whole knot wants to crack off. So if you cut over a knot, I would not recommend doing that. But we're looking good. All I got to do is cut off the ends over here, cut the 6 boards that are actually going to be used as the shelves to the right length, and get it set up in the basement. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to get these boards leveled out, not realizing that as I'm moving the top, the bottoms are moving, and as I'm moving the bottoms, the top are moving. When I figure that out, I try to use my foot to stabilize it a little bit, as you can see. But eventually I decide just to give up on the measuring until after I get the boards in, which I'm doing at the moment. So I'm just sliding the boards in. I know the boards are measured perfectly, so I decide just to put the boards in, and I'll line the ends up with the board, and then I'll use a measuring tape after that to line up the middle board. So as you can see, I continue here to just line up the boards, and then I will screw them in. I line up the tank here, make sure that all my measurements are right and the tank's actually going to fit. So here I'm screwing in the screws on one side of the board here, because I know that's going to be nice and level and nice and even, because I clamp the boards together as I cut them. Again, thank you, Chris, for that suggestion. That helped. Helps a lot with the measuring when you clamp the boards together, because you make the one cut versus all the different cuts, so you know the cut's the exact same place on all the boards. So what I'm doing here is I'm measuring 38 inches to the middle board there, and once I hit that 38 inch on the top, I put 2 screws in there, and then I push the board over on the bottom to 38 inches, and then I keep doing the same for the other two boards. And once they hit 38, screw them in. Now I'm going to lift this board up, and I had to flip it around there, and now it's out of camera view, but it was really hard. There's some wires up in the boards up there, so I had to unplug the fish tanks and move the wires around a little bit, but eventually got it in there. So here I am making sure everything's nice and level, just leveling everything out, screwing it into the studs on the top there. I was going to screw over there, but then I realized I needed a board, so I went and grabbed the board, made it was level, leaned the rack against that board when it was level, and then I put the screws into the board. So then once I knew that was level, which it was, I was able to put the screw and connect the rack to there. The middle, see that blue electrical box? That actually got in my way later in the video. I don't think they show me moving it, but I had to move that. There's my lights turning off because they're on motion detection. So that's why those lights turned off there. But here's me building the other side of the rack now. Trying to decide where I want to put it. There's the Red Bull that I drink all day long, every day. I'm addicted. You can find good deals on Amazon on Red Bull. 86 cents a can occasionally if you buy it by the case. I look for those. But anyways, here I'm going to do the exact same thing. Just put the screws in and attach boards. So at some point around right here is where I had the same problem with the wires and the electrical boxes and had to move everything around. I just decided to flip this the opposite way to give me a little bit more room. The way it was arranged that way, it gives me a little bit more room in the shelf, or in the room. Just a couple more inches, but it saves a couple of room because it gives that, it hides a little bit of extra shelf from the legs under the rack rather than having it protrude from the rack. So that's why I flipped it here. Here I'm just focused on getting the top of this rack into the studs at the proper 1 foot distance from the tank, because that is the width or depth, whatever you want to call it, probably width of a 20-gallon long is about 1 foot, a hair longer. But that's me measuring to get that width right, at least on the top section right now. Here I'm securing the other piece of wood the same way I did the first piece and put the opposite screw in. Now I need to have a piece of wood on the bottom that I measured to be 1 foot to make sure that, well, it was longer than 1 foot because of the way that I screwed it to the wood, but it's making sure that the bottom is the same distance from the top and getting it. So now I'm just taking the level, making sure everything is nice and leveled up because this is the last step.
Okay, we are looking pretty good with the rack here. So I have it secured into the ceiling via the studs. I leveled it with my trusty level over here. Make sure it's nice and level. And everything looks fantastic, actually. All the measurements came out perfectly. All the shelves are perfectly level. These guys are perfectly straight up and down. One little minor. See how these middle shelves are just maybe a centimeter off? So basically what I'm going to do is I am going to go cut a wedge of wood that is half of a finger length long and slide it under there. Same thing with the back one. But the end legs are fantastic. They're all sitting flush. So that is great. Couldn't have turned out any better if I wanted it to. Thank you, Chris. I'm gonna go cut them wedges, get the tanks on the stand, and see how it looks. So we are looking good. We got the tanks on the rack. It fits nicely. It measures perfectly level. Under here, I was able to cut some little guys and slide them under there, make that nice and leveled up. And I think I'll be able to fit 6 10-gallons there. So not bad, 6 20s and 6 10s. So soon we'll fill them up with water. I'm gonna fill them hopefully in the very, very near future, and we'll have a video of everything else set up for you guys. Okay, till next time, this was Chris Roma, aka Roma Aquatics. Hope you learned a little bit of something. If not, at least you were entertained, I hope. And again, another thank you to Chris Hardy for giving me the notch ideas and pointing me in the right direction. Thank you. All right, later, fish fan.